a infrastructure as code to develop this particular stack, which is an Amazon API Gateway, an AWS Lambda, and an S3 bucket. You can see here, when we do a configure AWS credential as a step, it needs to know which role to assume. And that's it will pick up secrets of AWS. Any more thoughts on any other?
I think the AI will reduce the number of developers.
Oh, you think it will?
So a team that requires 5 people can be run with a team that can run with, say, 3 people.
I promised you I'll create a backend with OpenAI Codex. I think we did it. How do you create an AWS backend with vibe coding? Let's learn today. We are going to create an AWS backend with an API gateway and Lambda and an S3 bucket, all deployed with infrastructure as code using GitHub Actions in AWS, and we'll do all that with vibe coding. And if you are interested, please watch on. What you are going to see is an AWS AI London event that where I presented yesterday, and I've just put all the recording here. So what are we going to do today? I think very exciting things. We are going to do some live coding. Now, if you guys want to join along with me, you are welcome. I think we'll keep the pace a bit slower, and so that you are able to follow me. What I'll do is I've put a lot of things in the documentation. Hopefully, I'll be able to share that with you at the end of the call as well. So what are we going to do today? I think we are going to create some kind of setup like this, where we will interact with Codex, and I'll go in detail on what Codex is. We'll interact with Codex with a prompt. That Codex will create a pull request on our GitHub repository. Then we'll also use prompting to create GitHub Actions and Terraform code to create a full stack, a infrastructure as code to develop this particular stack, which is an Amazon API Gateway, an AWS Lambda, and an S3 bucket. So I think roughly the application will be a very hello worldy, so to say. And this application will basically, we hit the endpoint and it will call the Lambda, and Lambda will basically write some file in the S3 bucket. But even if all that, if we are able to do purely with prompts, that's great. And that's exactly what the agenda is. We'll understand what is OpenAI Codex. We'll look at some of its features, and we'll set up Codex environment. We'll set up the AWS environment. We'll vibe code the whole thing and see if we get lucky on creating the end-to-end thing without any issues. Because I think, and that's something we'll go into. Vibe coding itself is very, let's say, fluky. It's a coin flip sometimes. And while agent is busy, we'll have a lot of interesting discussions. I think we would love to know about your backgrounds and what kind of culture in your company. I think how you're adopting AI, what AI coding tools you use, do you vibe code? And I think we'll probably get through these. Hopefully that there'll be more. And during the discussion, I think, there is a note. Questions are welcome. Please feel free to interrupt me. Please feel free to ask me any questions. I usually, when I explain things, I skip things because in my mind, it's just like it's fit in the right place. Feel free to ask me questions if there is something isn't clear. We will record this session, so no worries about missing out. If you just want to walk away, go for a coffee, that's fine. And yeah, that's it. So let's start. I think I'll go first to the last place. Who am I? I'm Prasad, and I also call myself the AI monger. I run a YouTube channel, but I'm primarily a software engineer. I think I've been doing software for around 20 years. I used to be senior engineering manager in companies like Expedia. I'd been like cloud engineering, have done cloud engineering, data engineering, software engineering. I've done a lot many things, right from front end to back end to data. And I think this channel was about creating more conversations around the fear around AI taking over software jobs. And I think that that takes my interest because I see everyone talking about, AI is out there to replace jobs. And I was like, really? I want to try that myself. And that's the reason, I was fairly hands-on even when I was an engineering manager. Right now, I'm doing contracting, and I'm almost setting up an agency around AI so that I can help small and medium businesses uh, understand AI, adopt AI, and actually use the power of it to do more with less. So that's me. That's me. And yeah, I've come from India. I think I came here around in 2008. So it's been a while I've been in London. And now almost that I started thinking of going back now, maybe at some point. Anyways, so we'll start here. Let's start with what is OpenAI Codex. So OpenAI Codex is basically OpenAI or ChatGPT's feature. It's a new feature. It's also a model in the backend. It's a fine-tuned model on top of an O3 model. Those who know about O3 model, it's a reasoning model, which also powers deep research in a way. Reasoning models in general are supposed to understand the task, think about it, reason through it, break it down into, have a plan and execute that plan properly. So I think what OpenAI team did, I think they took the O3 model, which was OpenAI's model, then they made it, they trained it, they fine-tuned it on top of a lot of GitHub's public repository. And I think that's why it became very specialized for coding related tasks. And what Codex lets you do is basically interact with GitHub repositories in a way where it becomes your agent that can review code, that can change code, that can bug fix, all while you just describe it. Now, you can primarily use it from ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, it's available for Plus users. So I'm not sure if any of you are Plus users or not. If you are not Plus users, then you can always use an OpenAI key and install Codex CLIs on your laptops. And I think that will be a good way to actually use this as well. The reason why I love the web chat, and I'll go into more details on it, is because I think you can do this from anywhere. So for example, the first time I interacted with OpenAI Codex, I was actually just sitting on my bed, just twiddling thumbs using my phone. And I set up some GitHub repository to work with. I'll go into details on how to set it up, and we'll see it live. But I was just like working through, and I had a thought that I wanted to fix something in one of my public repositories. And then I just like prompted it, and it just created a pull request. And that was amazing. Like every time I coded in the past, I always needed my laptop with me. This was the first time ever in my life I was just sitting down with my phone, and Codex was doing coding for me. Anyways, let's go down into the problem for today, which is creating infrastructure as code for creating a simple application, right? So what's required for us is we'll be setting up a few things, because I think without setup, it's not an easy thing without a setup. Why? Because your OpenAI environment needs to connect to GitHub repository. When we deploy infrastructure as code, your GitHub repositories, your GitHub actions needs to connect to AWS. And I think there is this glue, or like almost like setup, which is fairly one time, especially GitHub to AWS. But I think we'll need to create new environment every time we create a new Codex environment. I'll explain what that is. So what we'll do is we'll create a repo, initialize with a README. We'll add a GitHub action secret. I'll explain why, but let's start. Are you all with me?
Yes, Prasad.
Perfect, thank you. So let's start. What GitHub Codex allows us to do is you go into environments, and environments are for Codex. Environment is basically what GitHub repo is for us in GitHub. So when we create an environment in Codex, it's basically a repo. We are trying to connect Codex to a GitHub repo. So I've already configured my own user with Codex, but if you start Codex from scratch, I think you'll probably have, it will prompt you to connect to GitHub, where you'll approve it, and like all that shebang will happen. And once you are approved, then you are able to choose your repository to create your environment. So there are many repositories, but we'll create from scratch because I like adrenaline and I like to risk my reputation. And I'm actually I'm actually scared because I think there are times I think it just gives me surprises, and I think this is one of the things with vibe coding, deterministic behavior of it. I think it's something we want to talk about, and we will talk about it. So I will create another repo. Let's call it OpenAI with AWS test 7. As you can see, I've done multiple tests, and I think I'll go with more of what I found out from all these multiple tries. 90% of it was success, so I think it's a good news. I think I'll create a public repositories. I add a README intentionally because it just initializes the repository. So I'll create a repository, and now it's fairly empty. What, like I said in the document, I have to create a set up a role as a secret, and I think this is the secret to connect GitHub with AWS. Now it's called AWS_role, and I'm just adding a secret. If you notice this is an IAM role pointing to my account, and it's called OnToScale GitHub OIDC role. Now let me jump into why an OIDC role is needed. When you connect from GitHub, where is our famous diagram? When you're trying to connect from GitHub Actions with Terraform to AWS, I think often, what is our traditional way, right? The simplest, if you ask anyone, will be, just get credentials and then, use Boto3, connect, and we are done, right? It's usually as simple as that. What OIDC lets you do is we create a role where GitHub becomes an identity provider to your cloud OIDC connector, and we use that so that we don't always need to refresh our credentials. So it becomes the GitHub action role will actually assume the OIDC connector role. It will assume that identity, and it can always interact with GitHub without requiring any particular AWS credentials and refreshes, because it will simply use STS to always fetch the right credentials and refresh it. And it's also for security. I think here we can specifically add conditions where we can allow only a few patterns of repositories that can interact. For example, I have restricted this to only allow any GitHub action, processes which are coming from my own GitHub setup, right? You can be very specific. You can even specify branches here. I'll let someone in, or you can be a little bit, you can use wildcards here as well. As you can see here, I think we have used a federated principal here with a OIDC provider. So we need to create this role, and this has to be created beforehand, unfortunately, and this will be a one-time thing. So we created a OIDC role with a trust relationship, and that trust relationship has specific rules so that it allows GitHub to post, add any actions here. For that, we'll also need to add an identity provider, which is GitHub user content, where the provider itself is GitHub user content, and audience is STS. Right. So I think that is one level of setup which is needed. Now we go into the next level, which is setting up the environment. So we just now created an AWS test 7 environment. We'll go here, we'll find Did I refresh this? Probably not. Okay. We'll go and find this new repo, test 7. Okay. So test 7 is added. Now we have to, now this is an environment for an agent, right? So we have to ensure that whenever agent runs, it has access to whatever it needs. So we can add environment variables to the agent. We can add secrets to the agent. We can also allow agent internet access, which has a certain kind of, pre-configured dependencies or whatever package repositories we need. At the moment, I'll just let it go wild and all unrestricted. For Terraform, for example, it needs to download Terraform packages. So I think
So manager. What is Flash called?
sorry. I think someone is not on mute. I'll request them. So we'll go and create the environment. And now we are ready to use this. Now we just need to describe a task. Now, what we can do so that we can utilize our time much better. Earlier, I was thinking of breaking the whole task down into 3 prompts, which is first we'll create an S3 bucket with Terraform and GitHub Actions. And then the second prompt to add a Terraform destroy so that we have ability to completely tear down our infrastructure if needed. And the third one was to add Lambda and API Gateway. And I was wondering that maybe I should just combine it all. And I think that's where I created this prompt. Let's run through the prompt. So create an S3 bucket with Terraform and GitHub Actions. So what I'm saying is create an application that can create an S3 bucket with the name onto scale create with OpenAI Codex in AWS, use Terraform to define infrastructure as code, and use GitHub Action role to deploy Terraform. GitHub Action workflow should only deploy on merge to main. And those who have worked with Terraform before, I think you need a backend state file backend S3 bucket where it can create a state file. So I think that this is something another point where I had to pre-create. And then I have to mention that, hey, your OIDC connector is inside or AWS role as a secret. Then I'm also mentioning, hey, also please add a tear down GitHub workflow so that I can just clean up the mess that I've created. I don't have, and I think my wallet is safe. And the last one is add Lambda and API Gateway. Can you create an AWS Lambda written in Python with an API Gateway that creates a file in S3 bucket we created, and call it. Make sure Lambda is packaged automatically in Terraform, and I have to specify which region I'm using, and all that, and we'll just let it fly. And as you can see, it will now start working on the task. The output will be a pull request, which we can review, and we can come back to whether we like it, we not. I think if there is anything we want to change, we can prompt it to change it. And I think that's generally how it works. So while it works through the change, I think would love to know in the room, like what do you think about vibe coding in general? Do you use it yourself? Are you experimenting with it? What's your impression of it so far? So yeah, anyone would like to share what they're thinking? Yes, Surya. Surya, you are on mute. Yeah.
I was using Lovable. I think it's vibe coding. It's crazy. I mean, how fascinating it is, building websites and stuff like that in just one click. And I think it blew my mind, basically.
I completely agree with you. And I think that's also a very good reason for why I created the YouTube channel, because I was like, this is game changing. As someone who has heavily been on the backend and data engineering and mostly on the backend side, and I understood React code, but then when I actually started, I was exposed to Bolt, by the way, not Lovable, but Lovable is probably better than Bolt. And I was completely blown away, which is like a few prompts you can create a really detailed application. Now it didn't have it can't create a really good backend. So I think that was one of the problems that I saw. And so far, I don't think any front end vibe coding tool does backend really well. And that's the reason I started figuring out, that maybe software engineers are safe, especially the backend ones, especially data engineers and backend engineers, because as you can see, the vibe coding that we are doing right now, it's almost like we need to be aware of each and everything of the way the whole system works. And only then we are able to vibe code with it. Throw this to someone who is not familiar with cloud, who is not familiar how backend components interact with each other. I think it's absolutely crazy. I think they won't be able to do it as well, right? So I think as far as simple CRUD applications go, sure, I think we'll reach a point where users will be able to create an end-to-end application, but may not be more complex systems and large-scale infrastructures. I don't know. That's what I think. What do others think about it? Anyone else? No. So I think meanwhile we'll go and check what's happening around here. Let me do a refresh, and looks like our job is done while we were talking. So let's analyze this code. We have a deploy GitHub workflow. Those who have worked with GitHub Actions, I think it is supposed to be in GitHub .github/workflows, and this is a deploy YAML file where we define on push branches. That means whenever a main branch merges, I think on push to main branch, I think this will be triggered. Permissions, ID token, write and read. I think this is especially needed for OIDC connectors. So I think this is a GitHub Actions way of ensuring it has permission to write into AWS. And with jobs, I think it has created a deploy job that checks out the code, sets up Terraform, configures AWS credential. It is correctly pointing to the secret that we created, AWS region US East 1, and Terraform init and Terraform apply. Yeah, that looks good. Destroy on workflow dispatch, which is great. So I think every time we merge something, it won't automatically trigger a Terraform destroy, which is good. On workflow dispatches, basically it allows users control on executing a tier down whenever we want. It's not automatic, which is very desirable. And on destroy, I think it has done mostly similar things, except it has called Terraform destroy at the end. Then it added a git ignore. Yes, I think I approve. Added some readme, which is great. Lambda function, it has created a Lambda function, which is Boto3 client S3. It's a bad smell. I usually add a region explicitly, although even if S3 is supposed to be global. And it will create a simple file with probably a timestamp in it, and it will call a put object, and it will run a status code and body of what was created. So this looks good so far. Okay, let's go into the Terraform. So it has added a main Terraform snippet or script where it has kind of correctly used the bucket, which is the Terraform backend bucket for the state files, and a code to create S3 bucket, which is good. The name is what we expected, which is this. And then a Lambda execution role, because I think we'll be creating Lambda. And then Lambda basic, IAM policy attachment, makes sense. Archive, Lambda zip, archive file. So I think here it is, Terraform is going to archive our Lambda, which I think we have already seen the code. The code is Lambda function under Lambda directory. So it will probably create a zip for it. And then it will attach it to Lambda function. And then it will create an API gateway of protocol type HTTP, which is great, an API gateway integration and a root, and along with Lambda permissions. so that API gateway can invoke Lambda. Perfect. Like, how much time would that have taken us without this? I don't know. But first, let's see if it actually works. So I'll create the PR, and I've just clicked here. Now, if we don't like any of that, we can always request it to change that. We can even dictate it, which is great. But now I'll go and see PR. Now, I think before you go, just to prove that I haven't set system up from before, so you can see I've just got one S3 bucket. I've got no API lambdas deployed. Oh, sorry, no API gateways deployed and no lambdas deployed. And I hope things work. I think this is the most trickiest part of it all. If not, I'll just show you how how things worked in the past, and we'll discuss more about vibe coding. So yeah, I think we just reviewed the code end to end. I'm kind of happy. You can see, I think this was created by a ChatGPT connector. We can merge the pull request, and I'm hoping that when we merge it, this will trigger a GitHub action, which it has done. And again, fingers crossed, I expect it to deploy the whole infrastructure. And we'll wait while it deploys. And meanwhile, I heard from Surya, I think you like Lovable. Well, it's in the name. Anyone else uses any AI coding assistants, or what's going on in your companies? Like, are you given GitHub Copilots, or maybe Microsoft Copilots, or I mean, maybe Amazon Q? I don't know. Yeah, would love to know what others think about it. Anyone? I've recently encountered Amazon Q, and I was blown away by it, by the way. So I was a heavy user of GitHub Copilot at my workplace, where I actually, my clients, and I was heavily using GitHub Copilot. Agnislav, yeah, please share your thoughts.
Hey, yeah, in my company, we're actively using, first we used Cursor, but then switched it to GitHub Copilot, and we use it overall more than a year already. And I would say it really makes the speed of delivery of experienced developer much faster. It's not real vibe coding, like do me the application and everything works. Still, you need to understand the architecture, syntax, etc., all the infrastructure. But when you understand it, it really helps you to deliver much faster. And I believe before you said that about backend, that it's not ready. From my experience, much easier to have backend, even with quite complex infrastructure, than a front end. For front end, it can do a very simple design, but when you need to conform with design from the design team, this is where things got complicated. I would say AI will not replace developers, but developers who know how to use AI will fire developers who don't. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love your observation that the complicated UIs still need specialized front-end developers who can maybe use AI tools to create those, from a design. Is it the same experience others have found as well? I kind of agree with it, because I think, funny enough, I think although I say a lot about me being hands-on, I've sometimes kind of dwelled into building front end as well. And right now I'm actually helping my client build a front end. And I think that was my first interaction where I felt, I think this whole design was created very quickly. But there are always areas where, without knowing, without someone knowing the internals, I think it's really difficult to just prompt it's an important skill to know what to prompt as well. So I think Agnislav, I think I agree with you on that as well. But that if we look at volumes of number of front ends that are being created out there, let's say there are so many businesses who need landing pages, who need very simple websites, and they used to be dependent on, let's say, web agencies or kind of coding agencies or software agencies. A lot of these businesses and users are able to now experiment. Front end is the first thing they can see and they can feel. I think that's why there is a lot more feeling out there that front end might be a job that might be replaced, but like I don't completely agree with it. I'll share a simple example. Oh, by the way, maybe after this, after if that's great. So the code is deployed and ready. Yeah,
Sorry,
that's great.
Prasad, can I have a quick question, sir, if I can.
Sure.
So I sorry, I joined a little late. Yeah. So on the GitHub Actions, before even doing the prompt, have you already integrated that with the AWS?
That's right. Yeah. So can I see the name of who's speaking? Was it
Rajesh?
Hey Rajesh.
Rajesh.
Rajesh, I think I showed how. So there are two setups that are required because I was using Terraform. I had pre-created a Terraform bucket. So I had pre-created an S3 bucket, which is onto scale Terraform backend, and I had set up a OIDC role so that I don't have to continuously go and create more, fetch credentials and refresh credentials. So I think this is something I demoed kind of just when I started. So, but I can quickly go through that because you joined late. So this is what an OIDC connector looks like. And I had to set up my repository with the role as a secret so that GitHub repository knows how to interact with AWS. And this is a one-time activity because now I have set up a fairly wider rule that apart from my own user, no one else should be able to access and deploy into my AWS account. So it's almost like a one-time setup. I don't like redo this for every new environment I create.
Yeah. So this is the IAM role you have set up on the AWS side. On the GitHub Actions side?
On GitHub Actions, what you do is I'll go into Terraform deploy. Okay, that's successful. Let me go to the code. I'll go to deploy. And as you can see here, when we do a configure AWS credential as a step, it needs to know which role to assume. And that's it will pick up secrets of AWS role from the repository secret, which I set up when we started.
Okay.
It's right here. So it can be a variable or an environment. I think what I've what I've observed is I think I prompted for it to look at secret. That's why I think use AWS role secret. So yeah, I think I asked it to look at secret. That's the reason I've set it up as secret. But yeah, that's basically the initial wiring that is needed.
Okay. And it also says this management environment secrets. So that means that probably we can have for different environment, and then have one environment, one branch for pick up from one
So you
environment.
can always create multiple environments. I think there is a place where you can actually manage these environments in here, right? So I think based on that, you can actually deploy this to multiple environments as well, like from dev to test to, I don't know, if pre-prod to prod.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Prasad.
Yeah, and I think I'll nudge you to do that experiment because I think with my OpenAI Codex experiments, I haven't actually built that level of complicated workflow at all. I think this is so far I'm like very very early on in my experimentations. I just now, I think a few days back, I created a video dubbing service which uses step function, which used AWS transcribe and poly, and it's great. It worked. I was like to set that up, it would have taken a lot more, but from GitHub Action workflow side, it was fairly simple.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
So now I'm quite excited to actually see whether things work. So this was the only bucket we had. I'll do a refresh, and now we see another bucket. Hey, it worked. There is no API. When I refresh, I hope there is an API here. Yes, there is an API. And there was no Lambda before, and I hope we see a Lambda here. And there is a Lambda. So we can go and check if it's the same code, which it should be. I'm sure like no one would disbelieve, right? Okay, so now let's try to run it. I'll go to the API gateway and I'll see what it has created, right? So it created a default rule. That means if I just hit this, it should trigger the code. And it has failed with internal server error for some reason. So I think we'll need to debug that. Is it because the root is default, or is it because it's a post? What is it? See, this is what I was referring to, which is like there is some kind of unpredictability when it comes to the actual. So I think that's where we need to be really be specific about what we want to create. Now, in this case, oops, sorry. So we have, so what we want to, when we debug this, we'll have to, we can do two things. We can actually just ask, what's his name? GitHub Copilot, sorry, Codex to actually debug this out. And can someone help me debug this? So this is a root for which is created. I think it should be deployed.
Actually, you can use the Amazon Q to ask for query. Yeah.
I think that's true. I don't think I've set up Q on.
No, you don't have to. You just ask for Q. It should come
so
up.
Do you see a Q option here? Usually, or we'll need to go to Q, right? Something like that. I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious because this step has worked quite consistently for all my 6 tests before. So I think this is basically what my nightmare is, which is things not working in the live demo. But it's okay. I think you guys are software engineers, and I know you understand this. So I think what I'm tempted to do is understand why it has not worked. So I want to go to Lambda and actually see what has happened here. Like, is it even able to trigger Lambdas or not? So I think it has triggered it, and I have maybe pressed it 12 times, and something has failed in the Lambda itself. So if I go and watch the logs, I'll be able to find out. Okay, and access denied. Is not authorized to perform put object on the bucket because no identity-based policy allows put object action. So when we were reviewing our policies, I think it didn't do it. Probably we didn't actually. So what we'll try is we'll see if we'll go back to the code. We'll see Lambda is failing to write to the S3 bucket. Here is an error. It throws. Can you please fix it? I think there is another discussion to be had around please. I don't know. I naturally just speak like that. So I heard Sam Altman say that I think everyone who is like too nice to agents don't need to be. I think they are sending too many extra tokens on our backend. So please, thank you, and all that is not needed. So, but if we look at, it has created Terraform destroy, which is great. We can try it out. Maybe we can just recreate the stack after it has deployed, or I can show an older stack I had created with the GitHub Copilot. We'll see how this one goes. I'm hoping it is able to fix it. If not, we'll have to find another way. But this is the unpredictability of vibe coding, and I think this is why Yeah, I think so far, especially with OpenAI Codex, it's fun to do something different. And I think I might able to use it to get started really quickly. But a lot of intricate things, we will need to, it's sometimes faster to just fix it by hand. Because there have been a few times where I could see that, hey, this GitHub workflow, I just want this to be changed, or I just want another, every pull request should trigger some tests or something. And I know that that was a one line change. And in Copilot, I wasn't able to change it because Copilot doesn't allow us to manually edit some files. It's like completely dependent on agent. But then if it allows users to also add or change something, that will be a great addition to the UI feature in general. Uh, and and yeah. So I think coming back to the final question, do you guys think AI will replace developers? Any more thoughts on that? Any more thoughts on any other?
I think the AI will reduce the number of developers. Yeah.
Or you think it will?
Reduce the number of developers to do the work. Yeah.
I
So a
haven't.
team that requires 5 people can be run with a team that can run with, say, 3 people. Yeah.
I think you are right. I think you are right. Do you see a change that has started? Like, so one thing I always think about is how do we know this change has started? Do you think this change has already begun? Do you
Yeah.
think businesses are thinking about reducing the sizes of their teams?
What has happened is the salary paid to the developer has come down. Yeah.
Oh, and you're thinking that's because of AI?
I can't say that very clearly. I will leave it to the rest of the team to come up with. Yeah, but to some extent, I'm guessing that could be a possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Any more opinions on any of this? Meanwhile, I'll go and check. So it has.
Yeah, actually, yes. So I would say that I'm agree that number of development jobs as we know them now will decrease. However, new jobs will rise. For example, even with no code, low code solutions, other ones, it's like as always. I remember times when there was introduced Bootstrap. Oh, there is no need in designs anymore. But no, more jobs. Then it was the same with Tailwind, with React Native, with everything. But number of developers, anyway, people need people who can talk to computer, even if it's AI.
Yeah, I agree. So I think you are a believer that some jobs will come down, but that might mean more jobs and new jobs will be created. Surya, your hands are raised.
Yeah. See, ultimately, I think the replaceables are going to be replaced. While we scale our business or say some startup, it is very, very easy, or say it can't be said like easy stuff, but it is 10 or say 100x more efficient, or say in a very quicker manner, that we can scale our business or say startup using AI, right? I think those jobs which are failing or say which are falling behind to scale in that manner will be lost, unfortunately. Or if the people who are working in those fields have have those mindset of converting themselves to an AI generalist, then of course they will be in a better position of taking or say securing their jobs. It's my opinion.
True. And I think I agree with it. While Surya, you were saying something, I think I was a bit distracted because I think I reviewed the code that we had asked to fix the IAM role. I deployed it and I just ran it and it worked. So I think I'm a bit relaxed now because I can see a new file is created and we'll actually go and see whether it got created or not. So we'll go to This was the S3 bucket. It created 2 files, and we can go and maybe download it. Created by Lambda. So yeah, I think I promised you I'll create a backend with OpenAI Codex. I think we did it. Yeah, feel a bit relaxed about it. I'll have a sip of my tea while we talk more about it. So yeah, I think this is great, and you can see that while a lot of this would have required a lot of planning, a lot of thinking, maybe if teams have pre-created templates, they would have maybe done this equally fast. But to think of a stack we have in our minds and to actually quickly deliver it, I think this is what I'm loving about this. It's for software engineers like us. I think it's an interesting change, and this is definitely going to change industry the way I see it. I think it is powerful enough that it will change a lot of grammars. I'm pretty sure it is going to change how we look at code quality, how we think about coding standards, because if readers eventually are only going to be agents, and the probability of users, the humans being the readers of code, if that increases, then a lot of our questions and our existing grammars around what code quality should be like, I think that will change for sure. This is just one of the things that will change. Architectures will change, architectural standards will change, and maybe monolithic might just be come back into the fashion. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking, because monolithic architectures did solve, well, move away from monolithic architectures to microservices did solve for scale, and there was some merit in it. But then a lot of it was about managing one single code that grew out of size. I don't know how that will play out, but I'm sure a lot of interesting changes are um, kind of upcoming, right? Any more thoughts? Anyone wants to share any comments or have any questions about what we did here? Please feel free to share. I'm happy to like talk through it.
So now we have created a new code, isn't it? How about that we have some large, not large, or some existing code base, yeah?
Yeah.
So so is
What do
there
you,
any kind of a limit that it can only take up this amount of code lines or anything like that?
that's a very good question, actually. Who is this? This is
Rajesh.
Rajesh.
Yeah.
Rajesh, that's a good question, because
Sorry.
sorry, someone's is that you mute their let me see if I can mute Mohammed for some time. Cool. Sorry, Rajesh, I think you are right. I've seen with GitHub Copilot especially, uh, I've seen that sometimes with really large code, single single files which are like really large. I've seen GitHub Copilot sometimes struggle with it and just like give up. Um, I think it comes down to the context sizes and the context window that are currently supported with some of the models. I know Claude has much larger context windows, so maybe if not OpenAI O3 models or the Codex models, I think we can perhaps work with Claude as a model, and may work around that problem. But eventually there will always be a certain limit to the window, if unless if we are very smart about the prompt. And there is one thing I missed to share, which is OpenAI Codex, I think, allows you to define a file called agents.lambda in your repo. And it's a markdown file. It becomes an instruction for the codex as an agent. So you could see that this took 3 minutes, right? This took 10 minutes. But with an agents.markdown file, agents.md, we can be very specific about, how does my code repository looks like, because a lot of time that Codex spends is around understanding what a code project looks like. So I think if we are very specific about the code, where the tests are, where the source code is, it will spend less time on that, and that's probably perhaps one way to tackle with really large code bases. But I'm just thinking aloud. Sorry, I think Alex, you had a was it Alex? I think you had your hands raised. Oh, sorry, Agni. I'm sorry, Agni. You had your hands raised.
Yeah, I have my hand raised, but you mostly answered that question. So what I can add here is main issue is context size. So no matter is it a new project or the existing ones, if you can, like as a developer, give smaller tasks, or AI agent like Codex can just split it and you help it, the code quality will be good enough. Regarding MD files, that's the like must approach for using. For example, from my own experience, it very helps when in the prompt you say write documentation, both functional and technical ones, and keep it updated. In this case, AI always can check for existing documentation for any piece of code, for any bug fix or small feature, and then it updates it, and it really helps a lot.
Right. Okay. So you have actually seen the technical documentation actually helping a coding agent. I didn't know that. I thought agents markdown is the only file, perhaps what it usually looks for. But it's great to know that even if in some other markdown format, as in markdown file name, if you have technical documentation, the agent learns from that and reads that. I think that's great to know. I didn't know that. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Uh, I think what I wonder is if it actually conceptualizes an architecture and takes kind of plans a system with that in mind. I think that's probably something which is a bit further away from. For example, it can't decide for scale, so everything has to be prompted, right? This is the same thing I've seen with the front end as well, which is like if you give a very simple prompt on an application you want created, it will just create some application with whatever it thinks is good idea and of panels, of menus and stuff. But if you want really detailed uh, output of an application, I used to first go to ChatGPT on actually designing and actually thinking about what this application, what features it should have. Once I decide on the features, I ask it to prompt, create a detailed prompt, which actually really in a fine way describes what that feature is. Maybe in a similar way, it can do that with the backend architecture as well.
I kind of agree that one. Yeah, so initially, rather than going into giving a prompt, first we have one more prompt session to decide on the architecture and get that thoroughly um, reviewed and by the AI tool and make sure that's all fine, and and then um, and then only take only the piece of it, yeah, because otherwise, or the thread becomes too long and it'll start hallucinating. So you close down the previous one and then start with only the limited refined text into the next prompt and then generate further prompts for the coding. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And so it's almost like chaining of tasks, right?
Yeah. But make sure that it is not a long running prompt. Otherwise, it'll start going in a deviated way, um, doing something which is not related. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Interestingly, that's also a reason why I initially broke down these prompts into three steps. And then at the end of it, I was thinking that maybe I should try to combine it all and see how things work. And it's it's fairly manageable. We have just asked it to basically create three resources here. Uh, and it worked. But I'm sure if this prompt would have been much longer, it would have taken more time. Better to be very like bite-sized about the tasks we give it.
Yeah. And then delete off that, yeah. Otherwise we'll keep that in memory. Yeah.
Nice. Any more thoughts? Any more questions, ideas, opinions? Would love to hear. By the way, I think I set it up as 1.5 hours. I usually do all the demos in the first hour, and I let the rest of the 30 minutes be purely open for networking and just chat. Usually in online setup, we lose that. But I think I just hang around for 30 minutes. If anyone likes to hang around and just have a chat about random things, I think you're welcome. So, but yeah, I think thanks a lot for all of you for being for attending this particular session. Hopefully you found it if nothing, I think amusing and interesting. And this is, like I said earlier, I think this is definitely going to change how we work, and especially how I work on my toy projects. I think this is definitely giving me a lot more ammunition now. When my kids and my wife actually see me sitting on a sofa with my hands, and when I say I'm actually doing something regarding work, no, I won't be lying. Not that I lie, I'm actually using ChatGPT to kind of tinker around some things, but I could be actually creating things. I don't need to be sitting with my laptop always. uh, yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everyone.
Sorry, it was a lot to. Would you mind sharing this with me? So I would like to do the same thing as you did. Yeah.
This repo, I think what I can do is, uh, let me share this whole thing with all of you. So I think you can look at this code. You can I've put down some steps. There is example of the OpenID connector in my gist. So I think you'll have all of that at your will. So let me share a link to that in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very useful.
Okay, and if you guys want access to the GitHub repo, uh, yeah, there it is. I think it's public most. I think I created a public repo. Yeah, I think, and if you are interested in like more of my experiments, I think please follow me on like I said, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube channel. It's a shameless plug, and
Yeah.
I'll be creating more of these sessions on AI London, and
Yeah.
I'd love for you to attend in the future.
Have you put up your YouTube link here?
Will do.
Oh, I can see that in the meetup. Yeah, AI Monger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like them subscribed.
Nice. Where do you guys work? So I think, by the way, the formal session is ended. Maybe I can even stop recording. I'll call it an end, and maybe we can just chat up if you guys have time, and I definitely have some time.
Yeah. I'm working as a technical consultant